Okay, I'm all prepped. I'm ready to start weaving. I just want to show you, now that everything is on the loom, kind of how everything comes together that I've been talking about as we've led up to this moment. The first thing I want to explain to you, remember when you had your yarn going through slots and holes, and I told you it would make sense later? Here's how a rigid Heddle loom works. Now remember, basic weaving, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then the opposite. Okay, that's how weaving fabric happens. With the rigid Heddle, what happens is you take your Heddle and you put it up, and that means all the yarns that are in a hole get pulled up, and all the yarns that are in a slot end up just sitting down at the bottom. And you end up with a triangle opening, which is called a shed. And that is where you put your yarn through, okay? Now, while we're at it, let me just explain to you what I'm doing here. I have just barely started twisting on this part of this end of the warp, okay? If you were to start your project right away, you wouldn't be able to have a very nice looking edge because everybody's coming off their knots and everybody's just not settled down and what you need to do. So you do a couple inches or an inch of, sometimes I even use just kitchen twine. It doesn't matter. It just needs to be a plain old yarn, and you do a couple passes, a few passes, until you see your yarns settling into their nice spaces here, okay? So the other thing I do is I try to remember that when I have my Heddle in the up position, I know that I want to go from right to left through the shed. And when it's in the down position, I know I want to go from left to right. Now, I just want to point this out to you. This is a totally personal thing, and you can decide. When you buy a rigid Heddle loom, it will come with what is called I think it's called a stick Heddle. Okay, I can't remember. Anyway, it's to hold your yarn. It's like a stick with little notches at each end, and you wrap your yarn around it, and that's what you use to go through your shed. Comes with your loom. I'm not really happy with the rhythm I get going, and so I actually invested in what's called a boat shuttle. This was one of the many things I picked up at Sock Summit. You can pick boat shuttles up at any fiber show, anything like that. I just feel like it moves faster. I like the rhythm, just so you know. Okay, see how my shuttle and my filler yarn is on my left side? I'm going from left to right then. That means my Heddle has to be in the down position. And when you look at it in the down position, okay, now the yarns in the slots go up while the yarns in the holes stay down. So essentially the ones in the slots go up, down, up, down, up, down, and the ones in the holes pretty much stay in place. Okay, now I don't have the yarn in that I'm planning on weaving yet, but it's the same motion. You take it, you put it through the shed, and I kind of like to double check when I'm starting to make sure everybody's where they belong. Now what I love about the boat shuttle is I get into a rhythm and I fling my hand out, and that means I'm going to have enough yarn to go back the other way. I put the shuttle in my lap, and the other thing you'll learn when you're going through one of your weaving books, you can't put the yarn straight down because you're not giving yourself enough yarn to do the up, down, up, down. Okay, it'll end up scrunching in your fabric. So you end up doing either something at an angle and then beating it down, or what I prefer is I go to an angle and I kind of make a little oval thing. So then what happens, you take your Heddle, you bring it this way, you beat it. Now normally I have my feet on here so that it doesn't fly around. And then I go back up because I'm going from right to left. So I'm going to go back through with my filler yarn, fling my hand out, set up a little bit of room, and you will be amazed at the rhythm you get going. And as you finish fabric, all you need to do is lock your rigid Heddle in its little sitting space, release both ends of your wind-up bars, okay, and you just wind the fabric on here, lock them, pull it nice and tight, start all over again, And then, before you know it, you've done an entire piece of fabric.